Hello, hello, Liz Booker. Welcome back to my Women's Aviation History textbook research and writing journey. Today, I'm going to talk about two important decisions that I have been contemplating as I have gone through my conversations with my advisory team. One is this a textbook or a trade book? And the other is, for citations, am I using the Chicago Manual of Style or the American Psychology Association, so the APA? So let's start with the question of whether this is actually going to be a textbook or not. Okay. So I know I pulled this book out when I was talking about how excited I was about all of the resources that I have on my shelves. And I do love this book so much. It's this beautiful Jepson by Anne Milbrook, the Aviation History. And what I love about it is just all of the gorgeous pictures. There are beautiful timelines in here. I would love to have these visual aids in my book, but I do recognize a few things. This book that I bought, and I think it's out of print now, or if it isn't, it's an older publication, and it was around $100 to order that book, which is pretty spendy for a book. I think there's a certain element of like not wanting to force a classroom full of students to purchase a book at that price point when I'm teaching the course. And so I know if I go traditionally, I'm not going to have really any control over the pricing of the book. If I go hybrid or self-publish, it's still going to be an expensive venture. And I'm introducing a lot of complexity around copyrights to get photos of all of the people that I'm talking about in the book. So in my head, I do have that beautiful layout, but I feel like being realistic about what is affordable, what my market is, where I could sell this book. And I think that I could sell it both at, aviation events and to an academic audience. And so I kind of like the idea of the flexibility of being able to do it in a trade format. And so it would look more like a book like this Eileen LeBeau book, Before Amelia, where she does have some pictures in here, and I'm not sure if I will, but it's mostly a narrative text. And so that's where I'm leaning. However, I am maintaining the structure of a 15-week undergraduate course so I can keep some boundaries around the topic, which is one of the things that made this feel achievable for me. A 15-week course that you can only have, theoretically around 5,000 words per chapter. And that would make sense for 15 to 16 chapters because I'm probably going to do a little, before powered flight section at the beginning. So 16 chapters, we're getting up to 75 to 80,000 words, which is the right length for a trade book. So that's what I'm thinking. But I'm going to keep trucking along, doing the research and doing the writing, and that decision doesn't have to be made until later. So the second decision is the citations. And this was something that I had done, and I thought I had done solid research on. And I was looking at history texts, and the majority of them the citations are done using the Chicago Manual of Style. Now, in one of my conversations with one of my advisors, who is not in a history department, she's the associate professor for aviation sciences. Her feedback was that if I'm going to be teaching at her school anyway, the students are going to be required to do their research using the APA, and about 75% of the books that she's using are in APA. So I went back and I took a closer look at it again, and I think I'm going to stick to the Chicago Manual of Style. My plan right now, and of course this might change, but my preference, I love back matter in books. And I am that geek that will go back there, not even just when I'm doing research, but just in general and like look at all of it. But I do not enjoy having a whole lot of superscript or footnotes on the page that while I'm reading, especially if I'm reading something that's supposed to be in a narrative format. So what I'm leaning toward is having the clean page and having endnotes in the Chicago Manual of Style that give me the flexibility to maybe highlight some details that I don't need to interrupt the text with, but that are relevant to, citing that particular piece of information, whether, there's conflicting information between sources, because I'm finding that a lot with this historical stuff, is that in one book they say one thing and in another they assert another, and so parsing that out, I have the flexibility to do that with the Chicago Manual of Style, and I can get real detailed in that, and I can do it in the order of the chapters and the sections. So let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your feedback. Textbook versus trade book. What would you do if you were in my shoes? And what's your preference? As a reader, do you prefer to have the superscript and have the end notes highlighted right on the page so you know exactly where to turn in the back? Do you like a clean page? What's your preference if you are, in academia? What would you rather see if you were going to adopt this book for a curriculum? I'd love to hear from you. So anyway, I will keep you updated on things, and I'll get into maybe some of the fun details that I've found in my research. Chapter 1 is polished with a complete set of endnotes and a bibliography. I'm deep into chapter 2. So chapter 1 covered the pre-World War I era, and chapters 2 and 3 are going to carry us to World War II. I've got it divided into sort of the era of record setting. So, the 1920 until about 1932, when Amelia made her transatlantic solo flight. And chapter 3 goes from around 1930 to 1932 to 1939 at the beginning of World War II. So that's where I am. Thanks for your enthusiasm and support for this project, and I'll see you next time.